Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here from simpleprogrammer.com. So I got a real estate related question for you today. For those of you that are interested in the real estate investment type of videos that I've done, I've been a real estate investor for quite a while here. You can check out the videos here. I've got a playlist of all my real estate videos. If you're not interested in real estate, well, you should be, because it's definitely one of the best investments that you can make. From time to time I get some questions and I answer them about real estate investment. So here we go. I've got a question about inspecting properties. And he says here, do you always personally inspect the properties? Have you purchased properties that is not in your geographical area? If so, how can you make sure that the property management company is doing a good job? Do you always use the same companies to manage all of your properties? So a few different questions here. I figured I'd answer off some of these here. So first of all, do I always personally inspect the properties? I do. No. I do look at the pictures. I always have a professional property inspector inspect the properties, okay? I've bought a lot of properties sight unseen, out of state. I didn't do that with my first properties. I definitely checked those out first. But as I've gotten confidence in my ability to invest in properties and I know what I'm looking for, what I have found that I need to rely on is not necessarily my own eyes, but on an inspector that I can rely on. So what I try to do is I try to find the most grisly, most ill-tempered, most bastard inspector that I can that's gonna tell me all the shit that's wrong with the house, okay? That's what I want him. I don't want the inspector that rubber stamps it for the real estate agent and says, oh, it looks good, or just found these few things. No, I want someone that picks apart every single possible thing because I wanna know if there's something wrong with the house. So I pay extra money to hire a good inspector that does a very, very detailed job, and I trust that rather than myself, because what am I going to do? Go look at the property? In fact, I've looked at properties that have looked like crap, okay? And an inspector has come in and said, man, this property it's good. Everything is good here, right? And I've had the opposite. I've had properties where I've bought a brand new property, or I was going to buy a brand new construction. No one's ever lived there, and it looks beautiful. I'm like, man, this looks like a great place. Like, I don't even need a home inspection. Then I get the home inspection, and the inspector comes out there and he's like, man, whoever built this house, they didn't know what the hell they were doing. There's a leak. The plumbing is leaking. All this stuff is messed up, and he's giving me a whole list of bad things. So I rely on good inspectors. And if I'm really unsure, I'll hire a second inspector. Why not, right? Why not pay a little bit of extra money if you're really, on the fence, and get a second inspector to come out, get a second opinion. It's not a bad idea if you're making a big investment. Next, he says, have you purchased property that is not in your immediate geographical area? I kind of answered that one already. I live in San Diego right now, and I have properties in Boise, Idaho, and Kansas City, Missouri. Okay, when I lived in Boise, I was purchasing properties in Boise primarily, but then I moved around and I ended up buying a lot of properties in Kansas City, and I've never lived in Kansas City. So I've purchased them outside of my geographic area. If you're starting out, I don't necessarily recommend it. It's going to be a little bit harder to do, but I wouldn't let that stop you, right? If you live in California, don't buy properties in California. That's dumb. You're not going to buy a good investment rental property in California. It's too expensive. I mean, at least in the major cities in California, you know what I'm talking about. So same thing with New York City, stuff like that. So you might want to find a place, especially today, especially when property prices go up, you might want to find somewhere Midwest in the U.S., Texas, Missouri, Kansas, places like that where you can find a good deal, where the property is cheap and you're still going to get a decent rent for it. That's what I would do. So he says here, if so, how can you make sure the property management company is doing a good job? Making sure the property management company is doing a good job. This one is tough. I think I did a video on property management companies, evaluating them. You can check it out. If not, then I'll give you kind of an idea here. Anyway, so you can't ever totally know this. The biggest thing that I would say here is that you need to vet property managers ahead of time. Being in the location is not going to help you to know if a property manager is doing a good job, right? I mean, you can drive by and physically inspect the property and say, oh, it looks like they're doing a good job. That's not really a good indicator if they're doing a good job or not. It's going to stress you out. It's not worth it. Don't do that. Instead, you got to be able to trust the property management company you hire. So, do the legwork. Call 6 different property management companies in the area, right? And then interview them. Ask them a bunch of questions. Ask them for references. Go and check out some of the properties that they have listed and talk to the tenants, talk to the owners, look up do your research, because it's going to be worth it, because it can cost you a lot of money to have a bad property management company. I've had to fire 5 different property management companies in my career as a real estate investor, and I can tell you that they can really screw you over. And a lot of them will try to. It is a shady industry. Real estate in general is a shady industry. I got to tell you this so you know it up front. Be prepared to deal with shady people, okay? So it doesn't mean everyone is, right? Some people, but you got to find the diamonds in the rough, okay? Then he says here, do you always use the same company to manage all your properties? For the most part, yes, simply because of the economy of scale. Like, you're going to get a better value typically, and you have more leverage. I like to have leverage with property management companies. I like to say, hey, I've got 20 units, okay? Don't screw me, otherwise I'll take my business elsewhere. Whereas if I just have one little house, they don't care. It doesn't make a difference. So I try to use the same property management company, and when I find a good property management company, that's who I want to use. I've got 3 current property management companies that I'm using between Boise, Idaho, Kansas City, and Kansas City, Missouri. And the reason why is because one of the properties is geographically split in Kansas City, so I have to use someone else in that area. But I would prefer to just have just the 2. I'd prefer to just have 1, except that, between Boise and Kansas City, it's a large distance. But you definitely, you're going to have to manage the property management company, so you want to reduce the amount of overhead that you have by having less property management companies to manage, if that makes sense to you. All right, if you like this video, if you want to get more videos on software development, career advice, personal development, everything that's going to help you to become not just a better software developer in your career, but to increase yourself financially, become an entrepreneur, get the mindset that you need to succeed in life, go ahead and click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care.